Good morning, Delaware. Welcome to Off the Shelf. It is a beautiful Friday morning, and we are here in the studio with our new director, Bryan Howard. Good morning, Bryan.
Good morning, George. It's wonderful to be here.
We, of course, have Nicole Fowles over at the far mic.
Hello,
Good
hello.
morning. And Gage Tellis behind the board. Good morning, Gage.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
And thanks to our friends at the library for sponsoring the show. We're going to be talking about the big book sale that's coming up in the second half of the show, but get your wallets ready, your credit cards ready. We have so many books at Orange, and we want to sell them to you.
Just throw your money at the friends.
Just throw your money at the friends of the library. Exactly. So, all right. So, Nicole, what you've been reading, listening to, binging on this week?
This is a book that my husband found as we were just walking around the children's section. What you don't know about my oldest daughter, Wynn, who is 7, is that she is probably not going to want to be in the spotlight. I love the theater and I've been on stage, but I have not necessarily explored the backstage of things.
Oh,
and
really?
I've brought Wynn to several shows, and I've asked her about what she's thought about the performances, just pretty much focusing on the performances. And she's interested in the background stuff.
Really?
She's interested in the set and the technicality and the lights and the microphones. And when she asks questions, her questions are things like, hey, so when they talk and they're way over there, how do I hear them? And when that person was up in the air, how did that happen? And so it was a lot of those kind of questions. So we found this book. We're like, oh, so she's going to be on tech. Mm-hmm. And so we found this book as we were just walking through. It's called The Backstagers. And it's the first book in a series. So this one is The Backstagers and the Ghost Light. And it's written by Andy Mientus, Mientus. And it's got some illustrations in it by Ryan Sieg. And I wanted to read it before I just handed it over to her because I couldn't quite gauge what age group this was for. Sure. I wouldn't recommend it for a second grader. I would recommend it for maybe an 8th grader, middle school. So your middle schooler who's going to be interested in theater. It's really cool, though. So to give you a concept of what's happening, it's the stage crew. It follows these 4 or 5 kids. The stage crew at St. Genesius Prep, and they call themselves the Backstagers. And they're ready for whatever the theater world can throw their way, the madness of Tech Week, the inevitable prop malfunctions, but also all the paranormal activity that happens behind the scenes. So there's your twist, right? The critique that I have of the book so far is that it's one of those, and this is happening a lot in juvenile fiction right now, is that you might have either a chapter book that goes and gets adapted into a graphic novel for older teens, or you have an older teens graphic novel that's been adapted into a chapter book. Mm-hmm. And the latter is the case in this one. There was a Backstagers comic book that was written for high school teens, okay. And then this one was adapted from it. But where this one takes over is as if you've read that comic book first. Gotcha. And so it makes these references that is and last year during the production of such and such, we literally saved the world from the ghosts in the backstage. And I was like, but I want to learn about that. And I hadn't read that one because I started with this one. But what happens in this one is, if you know, in the theater, there's a ghost light. Yes. It's the light on stage that always has to stay on. Mm-hmm. And so some things start happening where the ghost light starts going out, and then some other creepy things start happening during their next production that they're preparing for. And it's got a lot of funny jokes in it. If you know theater, some of the funny jokes are they never call a show by the name that it's actually called. So this group just did the show Lease, and let me give you a clue about what Lease is about. One of the characters said, "Oh, have they gotten to the part about how they're too artsy to pay their bills? Oh wait, that's been all night." So can you guess what show Lease is?
I know what show that one is. Yeah. Tick Tick 4. Yeah.
There's another part where they talk about we have to have a really long break like we did during the Les Terribles show. There's another part where they talk about how there's a there's in their backstage crew where they hang out, there's a ratty old couch and a much-loved gaming console and a TV and a giant headstone from a past production of Once Upon Some Island. So they just have all these funny little things that, like, if you know theater, okay, guess what these ones are based on? They're talking about some of their favorite songs from Hey There, Molly.
Hello, Dolly.
And songs from His Majesty and Me.
The King and I. Oh, yes.
Right? So
His Majesty and Me.
It's funny. Like I'm enjoying this as an adult. Like, I'm not going to have my second grader read it, but like I like it.
Well, in 4 or 5 years, maybe she'll like it. Yeah.
Exactly. It's very funny. So anyway, happening in the backstage, their doors, they go to these like giant rooms. So the giant rooms are their prop rooms. And so like the electrical room has its own theme and it's an infinite universe. And the prop room has its own theme and it's infinite universe. And it's fun. I like it. I probably will keep reading it as an adult. So that's cool.
Sounds great. And it's called
The Backstagers. Yeah,
by...
first one for the middle school grade is The Backstagers and the Ghost Light by Andy Mientus, but you can also pick up the graphic novel of The Backstagers as well.
Great. Mm-hmm. Thanks. So, Bryan, do you have something you want to talk about, or just kind of generally what kind of books, new movies, music you kind of like?
I am a rare case in the library world. I love nonfiction. I love biographies. Just read about, I'm a big avid golfer and just read a book about Tiger Woods from one of his former swing coaches, wrote a book about him. It's very in-depth and behind the scenes and really enjoyed it. But yeah, whenever I say I love nonfiction, I always get a very weird look or a lot of comments made. But
I think if you go back and look at the books we've reviewed on this show and
it's a good mix,
it's probably more nonfiction than fiction.
Well, because you do so many biographies and then there's so many like histories and the TV shows and things like that. So nonfiction is fun, Bryan.
You got that
I'm
right,
there
it
with
is,
you.
Nicole.
Yeah.
You got that.
No, what's not fun is golf. I can't imagine.
Oh, come on, George. You're killing me.
A book about
You're
golf.
killing me, George.
On the other hand, I know some other public library directors who are going to love having a director here who likes to golf.
There are a couple that I already, occasionally go out and play with. But yeah, I look forward to meeting some more.
Mm-hmm, yep. You'll be very popular at the various outings that happen for some of the not-for-profit organizations in town, too.
Oh, good.
So,
Good.
Yes. So that's great. Okay. So this week, I actually read a really, really new book. This book was only published last month.
Okay.
And it is, I've got to get it back to the library today because it's due, and people are waiting for it.
Good for you.
I try to finish it on my lunch hour. This is called Shy, the Alarmingly Outspoken Memoirs of Mary Rodgers.
Oh, fun.
Mary Rodgers, if you're not familiar with theater, but you know the name Rodgers,
It's a theater theme. Yeah.
Richard Rodgers. It's his daughter who wrote Once Upon a Mattress.
Yes.
She wrote for The Mad Show. She wrote the theme for Captain Kangaroo.
Shy is my favorite audition song.
I can imagine, yeah. So she's also unbelievably unfiltered in what she has to say about people, and she can get away with that because she's dead. These memoirs were actually written about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe even a little longer. And what's happened is her co-author is actually the person who put the manuscript into shape, but then did footnotes. You could not listen to this book because every page has at least one footnote.
Oh, wow.
Some of them have 4 footnotes, and it's all footnotes about who she's talking about. So she'll throw out a name, and if you're a theater fan, you probably know it, like Cy Coleman. She'll throw that name out. If you know theater in the 60s or in 70s, you know Cy Coleman. But then some of them are really obscure, and then sometimes he'll write, if you don't know who Mary Martin is, you're probably not reading this book.
You're dead. Yeah.
So those the footnotes, though, are a lot of fun. They're very snarky. And the whole book is really snarky. And because she was Richard Rodgers' daughter, and because she and her mother had, at best, a tenuous relationship, she has a kind of a jaundiced-eye view of everything. To begin with, her biggest love of her life was Stephen Sondheim. And it just wasn't going to work. No. Stephen was not, he loved her in his own way, but not in that way. And so they talked, they tried to be close, and it just didn't work. So she was married. She had real propensity for ending up with guys who were gay until her second marriage, which produced the author Adam Buchel, I think I'm pronouncing it right, Beuchel, who wrote Light in the Piazza. So it's the third generation of the Rodgers family that is doing musicals in this world. And so anyway, Mary's story is she's very, kind of just flighty. She doesn't know what she's going to do with herself. She ends up at getting interested in music, although she didn't like her piano lesson. She didn't like any of that stuff. Her sister was a much better pianist than she was, and she always was trying to get her father's attention, and he was only focused on the music. And so it's that part of the story and how that influenced the rest of her life, and how desperately she tried not to sound like her dad, because she wanted her music to stand out separately from his. And
feels a lot like the story of Gypsy too. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of like the Mama June and everything.
Yeah, except imagine if Mama Rose had been a huge vaudeville star,
right,
and then had a daughter who was trying to get into the same line of work.
Had Mama Rose made it.
Yeah, exactly. If Mama Rose had been the star, then you would have known what she was up against. Now, of course, Stephen Sondheim was sort of adopted by Oscar Hammerstein. So it was like they were paired that way as well. So Sondheim helped out on some of the shows that she was working on, especially when they had a lyricist who wasn't as good, and who was as good as Stephen Sondheim, really. So anyway, it's a great book. It is a lot of fun. If you like anything about theater in the post-World War II era, you'll love this book. The reason I grabbed it so fast was because when I read the review in, I can't remember now if it was the New Yorker or the New York Times, but one or the other said it was the best theater memoir that reviewer had ever read.
Wow.
And
they read a lot.
And they read a lot, yeah. And I have gotten, I'm about 3/4 of the way through this, and I agree. This is just such a great backstage look at how theater actually worked in that era. So again, it's called Shy, the Alarmingly Outspoken Memoirs of Mary Rodgers by Mary Rodgers and Jesse Green, and there are a whole flock of holds on this book. So if you want to get your name up there, get your quarter on the pool table fast, and you'll get your turn.
Yeah,
so,
and while you're waiting, read the Backstagers.
Read the Backstagers. That'd be a good way to
get into it.
So we're going to take a break here. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk to Bryan Howard about taking over the reins at the Delaware County District Library. So stay tuned. And welcome back to Off the Shelf. We are here with Bryan Howard, the new director of the Delaware County District Library. Before we get started, I want to remind you that this Saturday only, is a huge book sale at the Orange Branch Library, sponsored by the Friends of the Library. It's almost a going out of business sale, but it's more like a moving sale because they're trying to clear out everything out of their offices back at the Orange Branch to get ready for their move to Liberty right after heck freezes over, whenever the new branch is ready.
We'll make it there.
We'll get it there, yes. And so there is going to be a lot of material in the lobby as you come into the library and in the community room. So make sure you make some time to stop by. You might want to come by in the morning, then come by in the afternoon, because they will be restocking a lot too. Yeah. So it's the usual rules, fill up a Friends of the Library bag for $10. It's the best deal in town. So
and just keep
it's
filling
a good time
it up.
to join the club.
Yeah, go dump it in your car, come back, fill it up again.
Absolutely.
I will also mention that Karen, last week when she was on, she said that they were going to be at the Powell, I forget what it's called again, Community Market?
The Powell Street Market.
The Powell Street Market, yeah. And I had listed on our online calendar that was a book sale, but she clarified that they're just going to be there giving out information.
Right,
so
they tried doing the book sale last year with the kids' books, and it just didn't work real well. People aren't there to buy stuff like that.
So on the 18th, you'll see them at the Street Market. You can say hello, but on the 10th at the Orange Branch, you can buy stuff.
So thanks again for the Friends for sponsoring the show, and I will look forward to seeing you at the sale. I will be there in the afternoon, so see you there. And now, Bryan, welcome to Delaware.
Thank you very much, George. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, we are so happy to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did Bryan Howard become a librarian?
Oh, wow, that's a fun story. I was born and raised in London, Ohio, about an hour away from Delaware here in Madison County. As a kid, used to just ride my bike up to the library as a teenager. Like I said, I really loved to read biographies, and I was very much into golf back then, so I'd go up there. And
Even back then,
I know. And I was always a frequent visitor in the library. And then one day, the circulation supervisor just said, "Hey, you're old enough to work here. Why don't you fill out an application?"
Those circ supervisors. They're tricky.
So working in a library since I was 15 years old, started back in 97. So this is my 25th year in libraries. Worked all the way through high school, and then went to go to college at Capital University there in Bexley. Got my undergrad, and while I was there, I also drove back on the weekends and worked part-time at the library. And after I graduated, I was fortunate enough, they offered me a full-time position, and I've kind of just worked my way up from then since then, and been in adult services programming, children's services, outreach, technical services. I've done fiscal work, deputy fiscal officer. I've kind of had my hand in every pot in the library. So I have an extensive background, and I'm fortunate enough to be a director now, and super fortunate to be here at Delaware. I'm looking forward to it and have some big shoes to fill with
big red floppy shoes.
So
And a teeny tiny little car.
So very much looking forward to this opportunity and getting to know more people in the community, working with different organizations in the community. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I'm looking forward to taking you to Rotary on Monday and hoping that you'll be interested in joining. We're always looking for new members, especially people who have the title library director. Mary Jane was my predecessor, and she's still a member of that club. I'm planning to stay. So,
Really?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
And I'm sure I will be there every Monday as well.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. So somebody has to deliver the book and thank the speaker. So
That's right.
It's been a long-standing tradition with Rotary. So
Yeah.
great. So what are you hoping to do over the next few years? I know. Let's start simpler. What are you going to be doing for the next few weeks as we overlap here for this next the rest of this month?
I'm going to pick your brain for every ounce of information that's inside of it. It's the first thing I'm going to do. And then just meeting with a lot of the staff, people in the community. I just want to gather as much information as I can. Just see, what the needs are in the community, what the needs are in the library with the staff, and just try to, be the person. I just, help them out in any way that they can and see what services are needed in the community, and we'll try to bring those to you.
Okay, that sounds great. I mean, you've been asking all the right questions since we're sharing an office right now. It's sort of, with all the theater stuff, it's just think Felix and Oscar, except that we're both Felix.
You got a roommate. You got a roommate for a while,
So,
and hopefully one of you is tidy.
So, but no, it's going really well. So, yeah, and I've got to say, you're not totally an unknown quantity to me. We've been on the Central Library Consortium board together for the last 4 or 5 years since Delaware joined CLC. So it's been a pleasure working with you on that group too.
Yeah, and that's part of what made the job so appealing. I'd have the monthly meetings with George and the other directors in the consortium, and just to hear all the wonderful things that were happening at Delaware. And I knew, other people that had worked for the Delaware system, and all top-notch, wonderful people, and who wouldn't want to jump for that opportunity? So I'm very, very, very excited for it.
Well, great. And I know that the board's excited to have you. And I know you've made a great impression on the staff so far as you've been going around meeting people, talking to them. I just have to feel like you're drinking from the fire hose right now.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's overwhelming. I mean, I remember my first month, it was like, what have I gotten myself into?
I think everybody thinks that whenever they go to a new job, it's like, did I make the right choice? Is this, so hopefully, even though it is overwhelming. I know on your first day, we greeted you with donuts.
Yes, you did. It was
and,
wonderful.
and I know there are at least 2 or 3 other events with food planned over the course of the month. So that usually keeps people coming back, right?
Food is always a wonderful thing for librarians. They always.
What could be one food that would win your heart, Brian?
Oh my God, I love some good barbecue.
Okay.
You've got to get together with Michael Butler, our former board chair.
Yeah.
His license plate references how much he loves barbecue.
Oh, really?
I'm not going to say the plate name because that's not fair, but his plate actually does indicate how much he loves barbecue.
And Mandy Henning, she
Oh,
and
yeah.
she
Oh,
and
she
her
and
husband
Luke,
Luke,
yeah.
they do a really mean barbecue.
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
They brought a brisket one time to a potluck that could bring tears to your eyes.
If you can master the brisket, then you are.
They have got the brisket down cold.
Yes.
So yes, we're having a potluck for me too in a couple of weeks, and somebody just sent me an email asking what kind of pie I like. And it's like,
Oh.
what kind of pie don't I?
Okay.
You know, the only kind of pie, and it's really more like cake anyway, is Boston cream pie doesn't really appeal.
Nah.
Because I don't like custard that much. But boy, just about any other pie you want to offer me, I'll take.
All right.
So anyway.
These are good things. Well, we've hit on what books you like. We've hit on your favorite foods. Of all of the positions that you've worked in the library, you said you've kind of dabbled in a whole bunch of them. What one has hit the nearest and dearest to your heart?
Probably just working the front line, circulation, getting to meet everybody, building those relationships, helping to get the right books in in the customers' hands, you know, helping children the first time they come into the library. That's, you know, working on the front lines, that's where you really get to experience that feeling of helping someone in the community. And that's
Good old retail librarian.
you got that right. So
Yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah, that's I love the opportunity to fill in as I've done it at all three of the other branches. I haven't done it so much at Delaware, but at Powell and at Orange and at Ostrander, just working the desk and just seeing people, because you know you meet the nicest people who use libraries.
Yes,
so it's and they appreciate what we offer, and they have good ideas, they have suggestions. And so it's a great way to, and they'll tell you what they want, which is also wonderful.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you really should have this book. You really should have these things or whatever. And
Okay.
you try to do it. You
You're
know?
right. Yeah. So if you're listening and you want to meet Bryan, he's right now hanging out with George in his office at the Delaware Main Library. We're giving him kind of a month to overlap. But then sometime in the month of October, and this will be news to you, breaking news, Bryan, sometime in the month of October, we're going to schedule some coffees with you throughout the community that we're going to get you out and about. And we're going to get people to visit with you at all the different branches.
Wonderful,
So
wonderful.
if you want to reach Bryan in October, you can see him at one of those coffees. Or if you want to reach him before then, you can just pop into Delaware.
Please
Call
come out.
George.
I would love
Yeah.
to meet you.
Yep. Yeah, we've got that open door. Unless we're in the middle of a meeting or something, you are more than welcome to just pop by. People do all the time, so it's won't be any surprise.
Right, exactly.
You've got to start meeting some of our regulars at Delaware too. So we have some wonderful regulars there. So it's no hardship to get to meet those folks. So
Right.
again, welcome, Bryan, and we are so glad to have you. And I'm personally very pleased to have you. I thought the board made a great choice in picking you, and I just know you're going to knock it out of the park.
Well, I appreciate that very much, George, and I wish nothing but the best to you in retirement. Everything you've done for the last 50 years for all public libraries, and thank you for what you're doing for me this month. I can never put into words how much it's meant to me, so thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. Let's end this mutual admiration society now and talk about some of the things that are coming up at the library over the next couple of days. We already mentioned the bargain book sale, but next week we have the beginning of a new book club.
Yes.
The Comic Book Club.
Yes, and I already reviewed the book that they are reading for their inaugural meeting that is taking place on Thursday, September 15th at 6 o'clock at the Delaware Main Library. They're reading Barely Functional Adult. If you haven't picked it up yet, you can pick it up now. You can have it read by Thursday. It is delightful. I really, really enjoyed it. So
Just the way you described it was hysterical.
it is hysterical. It's really wonderful. Now, do you have the plant swap on your list?
I do, because this is another newbie. Something, two brand new things this week we're kicking off. By the way, that Comic Book Club is on Thursday at the Delaware Library at 6. So, but now the plant swap also starts on Thursday. Go ahead, Nicole.
Right. It goes the 15th, 16th, and 17th. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the Orange Branch Library. We're going to have tarps laid out basically at the main entrance as soon as you walk in. And the plant swap is exactly what it is. It's bring your extra plants, things that you've cut, trimmings, saplings, bulbs, rhizomes, whatever you have, and bring them in. If you can, label them. If you can't, we'll have things there that will help you label them, and then put them down, leave whatever you want, and take whatever you want. So it might, behoove you to drop off a bunch of stuff on Thursday and then pop back in later on Thursday or Friday or Saturday, because I imagine that over the course of the 3 days, things are going to be changing quite a bit.
I would imagine so, as people bring in stuff that they have too much of or don't want. All I can think of is how much rhubarb we have growing in our backyard.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Except I think Joyce has already trimmed that all back, so I'm not sure we've got anything left. But this just sounded like it's such a wonderful idea, such a great way to share like that. But I'm also really excited about Friday with the Central Ohio Symphony's Village Brass Quintet. They're going to be performing at the Powell Branch Library from 7 to 8 p.m. That is come rain or come shine. We will do it out on the lawn if the weather's good. If it's not, we will just move it inside the Powell Branch. And Central Ohio Symphony, if you have not discovered what a great orchestra that is, and their subunits are also wonderful, like this quintet, you really owe it to yourself. This is a great way to find out. They're in the middle of their subscription drive right now for the new season. This is a great way to give them a test drive. It's free. You know, bring your lawn chair, bring
maybe bug spray.
Bring bug spray. Yeah, that's probably a really good idea.
Yeah.
Bring a little light nosh to enjoy while you're watching or listening to the music. But I think you'll really enjoy this. They are such a good ensemble, and it's a perfect setting. The park there, Library Park in Powell, and that's if you don't know where that is, it's on Liberty Road, just on the north side of the railroad tracks as you cross into Powell. So it's a perfectly lovely setting. There's plenty of parking there if there's no soccer going on in the park next door.
Right.
But you should have a really nice time. And again, that's Friday night, no charge, no tickets, no pre-registration, 7 to 8 o'clock. So it'll be done by the time it gets dark, and you can have a wonderful dinner at one of the great restaurants in Powell and enjoy yourself. So,
and even if the concert stays outside, the branch will be open for restrooms.
Right.
So you don't need to worry about that.
yes. So anyway, Nicole, as always, a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Brian, it's great. I'm thrilled to be turning this all over to you.
Thank you very much, George. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you, Gage.
Of course.
For coming in at a time.
Gage, I hope you get to see that rocket soon.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I know.
Gosh, it makes me,
Scrubtastic.
yeah, you gotta see that rocket launch.
By the time you get this thing off, you'll be probably fully trained as an astronaut, so you can
Probably.
go with them. Yeah.
I'll be in orbit by the time it goes off. Yeah.
You might also be broke with all your trips to Florida.
That's it.
So anyway, thanks for listening, and we will see you in the stacks.